push your body, certainly to places where Pedro Acosta has never pushed his body to before. He's going to be spending a fair amount of his winter in the gym, isn't he? Have they just draped Marc Marquez's gilet over that factory KTM?
So they won't miss that one out on track. Ready to race? Well, they're hypnotising us with the winter livery, so I think we can assume that's a brand new KTM R16 that Jack Miller's going to be going out on very, very shortly. Jack Miller, update on him, he's in 12th place at the moment, been one of the more quiet riders so far on track this morning. Miller on 1:31.25. He's only done 12 laps so far.
I saw this man earlier on. Let's, well, we've just spotted that new fairing that Jack Miller will experiment very, very quickly with on the KTM RC16. Simon, you're right down there outside the KTM garage. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I'd only just managed to get there in time to see it, and you know, the air intake was different. The wings look, I've got to say, first impression is they look one step closer to the Ducati front wings. The side fairing, you know, the one that Zarco ran most of the year and has that step that comes out before the belly pan, you know, a real shoulder there, much like the Aprilia one that I think the Aprilia had at first. Well, that zebra coloured fairing had a kind of, went one step further. That step has a wing going straight vertical as well up, you know, so it's like it looks like the spouting drain, you know, on a house shape. You see what I mean? Like comes out and like you could literally, it could channel water, you know, like I imagine it's for channeling air. So they've got a quite radical new fairing there.
Yeah, thanks for that, Simon. We're going to be looking forward to seeing Jack Miller on that new radical fairing, then head out onto the circuit. Just pop back into the Gresini Ducati garage there and just saw Javi Ortiz, who is the only Repsol Honda mechanic who's made the journey with Marquez to the Ducati camp next season. Here was Luca Marini improving his pace. Early days, of course, getting acquainted to the Repsol Honda. I'm sure he got quite a shock this morning, of course, so used to riding the Ducati Desmo Sedici at the moment. That previous lap from Luca, a 1:31.704, has pushed him up to a pretty respectable 15th place. Actually, he's crept ahead of fellow Honda rider Taka Nakagami, well ahead of him. It's only half a second actually outside of Joan Mir at the moment. A 1:31.230 is the best from Mir.
I'll say credit to me going out this morning. He's been very busy. 23 laps. The 2020 MotoGP World Champion has put in. He must be hurting after the pain in the neck that he suffered after a crash right at the start of the weekend in Valencia. And a crash that in many ways summed up Joan Mir's 2023. Of course, he was the new arrival at Repsol Honda 1 year ago. And surely could not have expected it to go as badly as it did. Not all Joan Mir's fault, of course, but only 6 points finishes, given that there were 39 opportunities this year to score points with the Tissot Sprints addition to the weekend. Joan Mir only scored points in 6 of them. 13 DNFs, including 2 did not start this year for Joan Mir, who, like Marc Marquez, found himself in the gravel trap and in pain a little bit more than he'd have liked to.
Yeah, pain in the neck here on Friday, and let's be honest, the Honda's been a pain in the neck for him ever since he threw his leg over it at this very test here 1 year ago. Tough times for Mir. There was even some talk around the midpoint of the season that he actually contemplated retirement. Fed up with beating himself up, fed up with recovering from injuries. Sort of the theme was set very early on when he crashed out on the first lap of the first 2 sprints in both Portimao and in Termas 3 at Honda. It's been a season to forget, hasn't it, for both the ex-Suzuki riders who jumped onto Hondas this year, both Alex Rins and Joan Mir. They spent as much time on treatment tables as they have out on circuit. I guess looking inside the Gresini Ducati garage, Julian Marquez doesn't have to split his time now, does he, between different garages, now that the Marquez siblings are reunited. Of course, they were previous teammates briefly at Repsol Honda.
For one race.
Yeah, for one Grand Prix. Emphasis on the briefly.
Yeah, fortunately, Marquez with that crash in the first race of 2020 in Valencia, which in many ways you could trace that back to the beginning of the end of Marc Marquez's long collaboration with Repsol Honda, because it was at that first Grand Prix, the Spanish Grand Prix in late July of 2020 after the COVID pandemic, that he had that big crash at turn 3, which led to a series of arm surgeries, 4 surgeries in a crash in Indonesia. Certainly that was where it returned most recently at the beginning of last season, that crash in the morning warm-up, and that ultimately began to drive Marc Marquez towards the point where he reached the final straw, where he was just bashing himself up. And one of my abiding memories, madam, one of my abiding images of this 2023 season, my abiding image of today will be Marc Marquez's smile when he got off the Gresini Ducati, but one of my other abiding memories of the season was Marc Marquez slumped over the tyre barrier at the Saxon Ring, the circuit that he has owned for the best part of a decade, well, over a decade, since Marc Marquez has been nigh and unbeatable around there. He had 5 crashes over the German Grand Prix weekend, the last of which came in that morning warm-up, and he then decided, for that weekend at least, that enough was enough.
There's a bit of frustration here, lingering over from Sunday. We just saw a gesture there, didn't we? An arm raised from Marco Bezzecchi as he comes on to Marc Marquez, who's clearly not at optimum racing speed. These two have got a bit of bad blood. There's already been a very recent history. Of course, Marquez in turn 3 on the very first lap of our season finale just a couple of days ago, cleaning out Marco Bezzecchi. He went for several high-speed barrel rolls through the gravel trap, and this is all just carrying on over, isn't it, from Sunday?
Well, Marc's usually the one doing the following, isn't he? This will be a rare occasion where Marc Marquez probably doesn't need to follow anymore, given that he's got a Ducati underneath him, but Marco Bezzecchi is certainly letting Marc know he's there.
Yeah, I was just about to say, as Bezzecchi powered down the start-finish straight here, if Marquez had actually kept himself at sort of flying speed, Bezzecchi might have been able to get an early look at Marquez on that Ducati. They dropped, they're now down through in caps. They were in shorts and t-shirts, but today it's a lot cooler, a lot more chillier, and we've got coats, we've got woolly hats. So you saw that fan there in the middle of your picture, is how much his hair was getting blown around, because it's that stiff breeze that's blowing around this Valencia circuit, which is the problem. I just want to know, it may be a bit of wind that's caught Maverick Vinales by surprise as he tipped into the first corner. He's gone faster again now. First sub 130 lap of this Valencia test, picked off by Vinales, a 129.924, 4 tenths clear of Jorge Martin, and continuing this tradition, Lewis. He is known as a bit of the
Testing
winter world champion, isn't he?
Yes, he does like to put in a fast lap time on a post-race tournament, and I'm sure I heard him say the word cold as well, which, yes, it certainly is, certainly by the standards of the circuits we've been to in the last couple of months. It's Marc Marquez there, gave the debrief, and you noticed the change in expression there, didn't you, of Marc Marquez after his first run, of course, when he was beaming at the first run on board that Ducati. It was very much business as usual, and the game face on for Marc Marquez when he got off the Gresini Ducati for the second time. He's got that little first one out of the way, and the joy of jumping on that Gresini Ducati after a Honda that has not been particularly rider-friendly for the last year or two. But now Marc Marquez has got that early euphoria out of the way, and he's now thinking about the job of trying to resume that incredible career that he's been on until the difficult 2020, 21, 22 and 23 for Marc Marquez. Pecco Bagnaia continues on his way, the world champion currently in 5th.
Yeah, croaky voice yesterday, I'm sure a bit of a sore head as well, but if you're not going to celebrate on Sunday night, you never will celebrate. I think he did say as well, Lewis, his emotions, an emotion on Sunday he never experienced before in his racing career. Of course, dealing with the pressure cooker atmosphere, the cauldron atmosphere of a final round title decider, but winning, successfully defending the championship with a victory. It's just that cherry on the top, isn't it? The icing on the cake. And he said, winning a championship with a victory, something he's always dreamed about in MotoGP, and it did feel like it made that extra super sweet, and he sat sort of relieved, the weight lifting off his shoulders in the World Champions press conference, and he said, I don't think I've ever felt like I've been more on cloud nine, more of a sensation, a feeling like it's not going to get much better than this, to be honest.
Yeah, real feeling of accomplishment for Pecco Bagnaia, who, I guess it's very difficult to enjoy a World Championship battle like that when the pressure is so high, and that pressure brought upon him by Jorge Martin in the latter stage of this season. As we touched on earlier on, Bagnaia has certainly been through the ringer this season. It might look on the face of it when you look on it in 10 years' time on Wikipedia and look back on the 2023 MotoGP Championship and think that Bagnaia won it relatively comfortably in the end by 39 points, but the crash he had on the first lap of the Catalan Grand Prix, which frightened all of us, let alone what it must have felt for Pecco Bagnaia, the painful landing and then being hit by Brad Binder in the leg. Many of us were concerned when that happened, how long it would be into the race itself. He was absolutely spent at the end of that Misano weekend. We talk a lot about the brilliance and the quality and the talent of Pecco Bagnaia, but he showed at Misano this year in particular just how far he was prepared to dig deep in order to retain that.
Leading the way, courtesy of a 129.924. It's going to be a tough test here today for his teammate Aleix Espargaro, still feeling the after effects of his right leg injury after contact from Miguel Oliveira on the opening lap of that Tito sprint in Qatar. But what are Aprilia working on? What are their targets to improve that RSGP into 2024 and beyond? I'm delighted to say it's always a pleasure to hear him on the live. A great character, a great engineer as well. It's Aprilia boss Paolo Bonora at Joyce side.
He is.